an unconstitutional hoax.
Do you remember when big tech called themselves the free speech platform and used slogans like "Don't be evil"? Fast forward a decade, and suddenly those platforms we loved for years have changed, and the promises they made at the start no longer apply. So what happened? How did we get here? Over the last decade, these companies have quietly moved their corporate headquarters outside the US to EU tax havens. The big change? Well, big tech is now governed under UN law. In simple terms, US free speech laws no longer apply to these platforms. What started as free speech for all is now regulated speech to some. We believe you, the people, not big tech, are the best judge of what you want to watch, read, and hear. We are content creators. We understand that a creator's ability to make a living should not be infringed upon. We created Zap Media with you in mind, a free market, next-gen media platform that believes in protecting your speech rights and, equally as important, your privacy, including IP theft and data mining. By removing the threat of censorship and freeing the market, content creators have a home base to build their platforms and grow their brands. The Zap Media community are brand ambassadors, coalescing behind publishers, subscribers, and advertisers alike. This is the beginning of the next big wave in digital media. With an estimated 225 million video-on-demand users expected by 2022, Zap is poised, with your help, to revolutionize the marketplace as we know it. We look forward to partnering with you.
Gonna have a bloody ripper show tonight. Bloody bomber show, mate.
Hang on, time out. Guess what? I had no audio going out.
See how salty he is?
See?
Do you see how salty he is?
I even had it on mute.
I'll show them.
All right, reset. We're going to reset. Ready? Aloha, and welcome to Trust and Verify, the only show where we constantly tell you, don't trust us. But before we go any further, I got to make sure that I address the chat. And in the chat, I saw everybody talking about how the sexy voice of Boogie Bumper, and they can't wait to hear it. And I'm saying, hey, what's wrong with my voice? What am I, chopped liver? So without further ado, let's get to the sexy voice from the man down under, Boogie Bumper. Boogie, how's it going?
Good. You know what really happened? He saw the compliments in the chat and he said, I'll show this motherfucker. I'm not going to let this guy get away with it. So no voice for anyone. How about that?
How about
See how salty he gets, folks? Everybody give James a pat on the back. Give James a big round of applause for his beautiful, sexy voice. I mean, well done, sir. Well done. You're a great man. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you again for another episode of Trust and Verify. Just before we get started, it's been a good week down here. I was going to open the show by complaining about the weather we've had, because we've had some record winds and stuff. Like we've had a buddy of mine at work actually the roof got ripped off his house on the weekend. But then I thought, well, can I really complain about the weather when one guy's in Hawaii, where if you jump 2 feet in the air, you'll probably end up, somewhere in the middle of the ocean, and people in Florida. But you know who's definitely safe right now? It's the people of Alabama.
Oh,
the good
yeah.
people of Alabama, they know what I'm talking about when it comes to complaining about weather. We'll get into all of that. Before we get into the fun stuff, James, I do want to open with some serious stuff, and I'm going to need your commentary here. This is from the White House. U.S. Attorney General William Barr end nationwide injunctions. And I'll just read the first paragraph here. And I want you to maybe speak to, if you could, does this have anything to do with current news cycles, current and past moves by President Trump in various areas of legislation? Listen to this. When a federal court, this is from William Barr, when a federal court issues an order against an enforcement of a government policy, the ruling traditionally applies only to the plaintiff in the case. Over the past several decades, however, some lower court federal judges have increasingly resorted to a procedural device, the nationwide injunction, to prevent the government from enforcing a policy against anyone in the country. Shrewd lawyers have learned to shop for a sympathetic judge willing to use an issue such as injunction. These days, virtually every significant congressional or presidential initiative is enjoyed, often within hours, threatening our democratic system and undermining the rule of law. So are we talking about stuff like the Ninth Circuit or that judge in Hawaii who tried to stop the travel ban? Is this the kind of thing we're talking about here?
100%. This is completely about what you're watching right now is William Barr is setting up the Supreme Court to rule and literally to rein in all lower court judges with one action. That's what you're watching. This will go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court now, might I remind everybody how important it is to have the Republican President Donald Trump in there to tell you that with Neil Gorsuch on the bench and with Brett Kavanaugh on the bench, we're going to win. And so we're going to be able to dial back this judicial activism we've been talking about since, 1970. Like literally, that's exactly what this is that judicial overreach where what the founding fathers actually even wrote about.
Legislating from the bench, James. Legislating from the bench.
100%. And they even wrote about that. They wrote that the reason, and this is something I've highlighted many times, the reason that judges do not have any power over a single police force in the country is this very fact, that the judges would take over the fucking world. So that's exactly why this is going on. That's exactly what William Barr is doing right here. It's 100% about these, going to the Ninth Circuit Court of, Circus and getting an injunction that says the president can't enforce the law. What? It's a law. It's on the books. You can't do that. And the Supreme Court is the only court that actually is independent of the executive branch. People don't like to hear that, but that's the facts. That's the way the Constitution's written. So the Supreme Court is the only one independent of the executive branch. All others are supposed to be working for the executive branch to pursue the law. Law above anything, no politics, period. But our founding fathers in their infinite wisdom knew that judges would overstep. They knew they would go to this judicial activism like you're talking about. And they absolutely, if they had a police force that worked for them, would enforce their edicts. As an example, we have a lefty losing their mind right now on the news that she got found in contempt of court for there's two versions. The one version, the judge says she was trying to constantly talk over the judge, and the lawyer's version was she was saying, "Look, I'm explaining the law to you. I'm literally reading the law to you." Because a federal judge, now whether you agree with this or not is a moot point. This judge said that he refused to drop the charges against somebody, even though the prosecution wanted to drop the charges. Literally, that's against the law. He doesn't have the power or authority. The power for prosecutions, just like in the federal system, rests with we the people. And so that means it has to be a political person to make those decisions. It has to be someone that answers to we the people. That's just written in stone. This judge stepped outside of that by refusing to drop the charges, and then went even further and had her arrested and put downstairs and literally drug out of the courtroom in handcuffs. And now you see, now you lefties are starting to learn, because it's a lefty that got taken to task. So I find it very interesting that William Barr is right now taking care of business, and he's going to get the Supreme Court to rein these fuckers in.
And then right on time, James, right on cue, this comes out from the Hill. Lindsey Graham, he's a tough one to place for me. Some people love him, and a lot of Republicans hate him. I'm of the opinion that Lindsey Graham is out for Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham cares about the success and or failure of Lindsey Graham above all else, above the Republican Party, above the White House. Lindsey Graham's out for Lindsey. But, that's just an opinion. I could be wrong. Graham calls on Barr to declassify files on DOJ watchdog's Russia probe, James. Senator Lindsey Graham last week wrote to Attorney General William Barr asking him to declassify documents relating to the Justice Department Inspector General's investigation into the handling of the Russia probe. What's funny about this to me is you write a letter when you want everybody to know what you're saying, right? Because he could go to William Barr. He could have coffee with William Barr and say, hey, why aren't you declassifying this?
Right.
Once you put it into an official letter, you're not doing it for William Barr. You're doing it for everybody watching what's going on. You're doing it for the press. You're doing it for the voters. You're doing it for the other members of your party, right? Otherwise, why would you make it official? Why would you put it in pen and paper like that? So I'm a little curious as to what you think about this. Why would Lindsey Graham be making this very public move to try and apply pressure to the Attorney General in relation to this Russia probe case?
Well, I disagree with that little tiny statement you just made. I don't really believe that Lindsey Graham is applying pressure to the Attorney General, since we can look back and we can follow this track record of the president gave the authority to declassify documents to William Barr already. William Barr is trying to use those documents judiciously, not to steal a pun from the previous story, and make sure that he can pursue justice against these other people. What we've talked about many times is that the whole point of what's going on is we're not going to get everybody. We've talked about this 100 times, right? Even if we get a grand jury to investigate every single person involved in this thing, we're still not going to get everybody, because some grand juries are not going to indict. That's just the way it's going to happen. So knowing that, my argument is that Lindsey Graham is batting cleanup. He's there to bat cleanup. Anyone we can't indict, or any indictment we lose the case, Lindsey Graham's there to make sure that they are publicly excoriated. Why do I say that? Exactly because of what you just said. You just said Lindsey Graham is out for Lindsey Graham. And knowing that, and everybody agrees that that's Lindsey Graham, why do we not already have hearings in front of his Senate Judiciary Committee? Because he's playing ball with the president. Because it's good politics for Lindsey to have been holding hearings this whole time. It's good politics for Lindsey to be screaming at the DOJ. It's good politics for Lindsey Graham to be lambasting Christopher Wray. And he's done none of those things, which tells you the president told Lindsey Graham, stay the fuck out of my way, and we're going to give you cleanup hitter. And we're going to give you the ability to fry everybody, and we will make sure you get everything you need to do it. So they're playing the ball together, in my opinion. Lindsey Graham has played golf with the president more than I think any other politician there is, even more than Rand Paul. So they're on the same page. They're in constant communication. And even Lindsey Graham has talked about it. Hey, I've got his cell phone. We call each other all the time. Even after the last time I gave him my cell phone number, he gave it to the whole world. So Lindsey Graham himself has told you that they're in constant communication. So this is
a bit of good cop, bad cop, you think?
Yep. This is exactly what's going on here. So I'm good with that.
Okay. All right. That's enough serious stuff for the moment. James, on many of your programs, you end the show with the Donald Trump advertisement from, is it Something Wicked? Is that
Yes.
the guy, Something Wicked?
Yes, Something Wicked.
Okay. So I want to take you back. I want to show you the kings of political satire at their absolute best, James, and a little bit of a flashback for you, because I saw this come up like when I was perusing the web, and I thought, wow, I forgot all about this. This is back in 2016, and this is SNL doing a Voters for Trump commercial. Now, what you'll find here, ladies and gentlemen, is not only the writers of SNL, but the corporate media more broadly. They're very ingenuitive, and they're very focused on remaining original. They don't like to use the same lines over and over and over again. I want you, ladies and gentlemen at home, to see if you can recognize any themes, any concepts, any ideas, any kinds of accusations which were present back in 2016, which remain present here in 2019. Have a look at this.
The media's been saying some pretty negative things about Donald Trump. But what are real Americans saying?
The guy's a winner.
He's authentic.
He's the only one who's actually created jobs.
He literally wrote the book on negotiating.
Trump's an outsider. Washington needs that.
I think he can make this country great again.
So when people ask why you support Donald Trump, you just tell them.
He's going to take our economy from here to here. I like that.
He's not some cautious politician. He says what I'm thinking.
I don't know what it is.
Jesus Christ.
2016.
Some of his ideas seem a little out there, but I like that he's looking towards solutions.
He's definitely not PC.
So why do I support Trump? 3 words. Good at business.
A message from Racists for Donald Trump.
Jesus Christ, these people.
Not much has changed, has
Not
it?
much
Not
has
much has changed. The hard part for me is when you work at SNL and you come to the realization that when you try to make Donald Trump look like a racist, you're actually making him look better.
Exactly.
Whoops.
Yeah, whoops.
Sorry.
Yep.
Sorry about that, everyone.
All minorities are better today than they've ever been in the history of the country. Remember, history of the country. And they still are beating the same freaking drum. It's
Same
unbelievable.
Well, like we said on last week's show, James, I thought, I don't claim to be the smartest guy in the room, but I used to think that I wasn't the most dumb. I used to think I wasn't the most dense. But in 2016, 2017, I was saying they're going to have to drop the whole calling everyone a Nazi thing because clearly it's having an opposite effect. It's clearly making people more it's making people more supportive. It's actually, hardening battle lines, and people are drawing lines and they're defending more so than they've ever done before just because you want to go around calling everyone a Nazi. And I thought that they would get that, but apparently not. Here we are in 2019. They're still doing it. All right. Something serious, James. If Donald Trump isn't a racist, let's just put that down to a little bit of mischaracterization. What he definitely is a genius when it comes to the weather. Donald Trump, James. We're going to look at some hot takes here. Going to look at some hot takes. Sharpie Gate, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to run through these shotgun style, but I want to preface this conversation with a caveat. A lot of people are really upset that Donald Trump hasn't been taken to task enough in regards to Sharpie Gate. And a lot of people have said, oh, look, he's acting like a child. He's having a temper tantrum. He can't handle being wrong. But to that, I say, see, you still don't get it. You still don't get what this guy does, right? What you see as a temper tantrum, his support base loves. They love it. They love it when he does shit like this. And the only thing that they love more than Donald Trump's temper tantrums, as you call them, is the temper tantrum that it induces from you, the people that hate him. The way you react to things, the way you overreact to what this guy does. They love that even more than what Donald Trump actually does. So I'm going to go through a couple of these shotgun style, James, and then get your opinion. The cough button. Sharpie Gate is nothing to laugh at. It's one more example of Trump's unchecked presidential powers. Did you know that Donald Trump, I don't know if you know this or not, James. I've got a hot tip from inside the White House. Donald Trump is planning on signing an executive order, not only with a Sharpie pen, but he is going to he's going to redraw the globe with a Sharpie pen. And that's going to be the new borders. Basically, everything except Canada is going to become the United States. You'll be pleased to know. When a White House Sharpie recently doctored a National Hurricane Center map to expand the projected path of Hurricane Dorian to Alabama, media critics and the Twitterverse exploded, James. Here's proof positive, they said, that President Trump ignores reality and literally stretches the truth to serve his own political purposes and stroke his own fragile ego. They claim that his stubborn fixation on the issue and later the validation of his position by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration only prove their point. And worst of all, they said this was a fabrication that mattered enormously to frightened Alabamans who wouldn't know whether to prepare to be hit or not. The media rightly covered this story and rightly criticized Trump. Presidential lies like this demand a response. We all have an obligation to call the president out when he states an untruth, especially those in the media. But in the back and forth of over Sharpiegate, we've missed the much more important story, James. Contrary to what we hear, this isn't just about presidential lies and delicate egos. It's about presidential power and the unitary executive theory, which posits that the president has unilateral and plenary authority to enforce the law as the president sees fit. So what you didn't know about Sharpiegate is it means Donald Trump is a dictator.
That's right. That's right. Listen,
Now, that's a hot take.
Now, from the moment you put that up, I had to scramble now and get the official responses to this story. So I just want everybody to know that I actually have the official responses to this story. And let me bring that on screen real quick here. There's your start. And then we have more. We have more. Here's the president listening to them.
There are many states that are under threat right now, Derek.
At least 6, from the Carolinas right through Georgia coastline into Florida, certainly, and then also even into the Gulf of Mexico, Louisiana, Alabama, 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 Mississippi. You need to be on the lookout.
There you go. CNN themselves caught Alabama, Alabama, Alabama. These guys are retarded.
No, James, I think to be fair, that's a doctored video. You see? That's a doctored video. So it doesn't apply. It's not accurate. It's not fair to put it out. James, it gets better. Our mate Brian. Oh, actually, you know what we're missing here. What we need to do is one of these.
Calypso.
The Weekly Stelter.
Brian Stelter, ladies and gentlemen, he thinks that the media didn't go far enough in its reporting on Sharpiegate. Let's have a look.
Here's how I would frame it. This
frame
Alabama story was about the president failing a basic geography test. At the time he warned Alabama that Alabama might get hit, at the time of that tweet, this is the forecast his own government released at 11 a.m. This is the most up-to-date forecast at the time of Trump's tweet. And look at this track. It turned out to be spot on.
Now Brian Stelter, he's actually found his rightful career, I think, weatherman. I think Brian is proving here. This is Brian Stelter's resume for a life after media critic. Be a weatherman.
Hurricane Dorian, right up the coast, just as forecast. Fantastic.
He's a
work
natural. Look at
by
this.
Government forecasters at the National Weather Service.
You know, I put a tweet out about this the other day, James, and the best thing for me about all of the experts are really angry that Donald Trump put out a weather report which was proven false 3 days later. Right? They said, "Oh, he's putting out an old report. That was 3 days ago. This is the most up-to-date report." But the very same experts, James, think that we have to believe everything that they predict for 100 years from now. Their own report. They are criticizing a guy for using their reports, which are 3 days old, and they criticize the same guy for not using their reports, which will one day be over 100 years old. Like, figure that out. But anyway.
Anyone who can read a map knows what this shows. No one looked at this and thought that Alabama was going to be at risk.
They still don't get it. They still don't understand how to attack this guy properly.
You know,
now I don't want to
look. He's got the heat maps. He's got the pressure maps. James, is there something you'd like to tell Brian?
So, as someone who actually lives in a hurricane zone and studies hurricanes every fucking year, I can tell you that the cone of uncertainty is uncertainty for a fucking reason. And what the president was saying was that even at one point at the beginning, I'm actually pretty sure his language was, when this thing started, one of the tracks, he said, I think he even said one of the tracks had Alabama in the mix as well. Like he was trying to say that they've been preparing for a large event because they really, as a government, think about how long it takes the government to dot an I. Like, you know, it takes you what, a year to get signed up for Social Security, right? I mean, it takes you forever to get this done. So knowing that, the government has to prepare FEMA, all these guys, to know what's coming, and they have very slow response times. Like they just do. It takes a lot to move these big pieces of equipment, this big ass body of, 10,000 people. So for the government's sake, they're like, we don't know what to do. So we have to plan for Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina. They had to plan for more states than probably has ever been planned for before, including they even had to prep for Puerto Rico, and then it completely missed Puerto Rico. So at the time of the tracks where the president was trying to make these statements, he's trying to tell you, hey guys, we have a large job to do here to plan for things and events like this, to try to be ahead of the game. And all these guys want to do is liar, liar.
Well, so far you've had two hot takes. The first hot take is Sharpiegate proves that Donald Trump is a dictator who wants to construct his own reality with a marker. Okay, that's the first one. The second hot take is Sharpiegate proves that Donald Trump doesn't know how to read a map. Okay, so there are your first two. Those are your first two takes. I want to take you to take number 3, James. After almost a week of wall-to-wall coverage, and it really has been insane. Every single outlet, every single newspaper constantly talking about the Hurricane Sharpiegate. This, a little Ray.
Hold on, dude. Forget the news media. This fucking story went so insane. NOAA had to release an official statement that said, you people are insane.
We'll get to that. So, but this, James, a little ray of sunshine through the otherwise climate change-induced darkened clouds over the corporate media landscape. Have a look at this.
Couldn't the president and the administration have handled this differently straight out of the gate right after he made, I'll call it a mistake, and said, you know what? Mistake, got confused. Instead, this is now a 5-day story.
I do begin to wonder 5 days into this story if there's not also a question to be raised about the media's fixation with this story. I mean, at a certain point, like how much are we sort of participating in a feedback loop, and what exactly are we trying to achieve? And the vast majority of Americans are probably wondering, yes, why is the president so fixated on this? But at the same time, why is the media so fixated on this? And I
James, this guy obviously has far too much ability for self-reflection. Whatever his name is, I want to say congratulations on your very short corporate media career. You're now done. You're now finished. You're now out of there. James, Sharpiegate. Meteorologists upset as weather agency defends Trump's Alabama claim. This is from the known right-wing conspiracy website known as The Guardian, ladies and gentlemen. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration changes its stance on president's description of hurricane's path. A federal agency has reversed course, much like Hurricane Dorian, James, I might add, that's me, by the way, on the question of whether Donald Trump tweeted stale information about Hurricane Dorian potentially hitting Alabama, upsetting meteorologists around the country. I don't want to see what a meteorologist upset might look like, but I reckon it might sound like this. That's the sound of a meteorologist.
That's like Renfield.
Did you hear that Donald Trump tweeted something out that was inaccurate? On Sunday, Trump had warned that Alabama, along with the Carolinas and Georgia, was most likely to be hit much harder than anticipated. The National Weather Service in Birmingham, Alabama, tweeted later, Alabama will not see any impacts from Dorian. We repeat, no impacts from Hurricane Dorian will be felt across Alabama. The system will remain too far east. But the president has been adamant throughout the week, James, that he was correct, and the White House has deployed government resources and staff to back him. How dare he? He should just say that he's wrong and move on and be allowed to be wrong, right? He should say, I was confused. I don't know how to read a map. I'm confused. I'm a big confused boy. That's what they want him to say. The latest defense came out Friday evening when the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration issued a statement from an unidentified spokesman, James. Unidentified spokesman, stating that information provided by NOAA and the National Hurricane Center to the president had demonstrated, quote, tropical storm force winds from Hurricane Dorian could impact Alabama. The advisories were dated from last Wednesday, 28th of August, through Monday, the statement read. The statement also said that Birmingham NWS tweet, on Sunday morning, quote, spoke in absolute terms that were inconsistent with the probabilities from the best forecast products available at the time. And what he's talking about there is probabilistic data interpretation, okay? Because you never come out and say it's going to rain tomorrow. They say there's a 60% chance. There's a 70% chance. It's like people play, James, when people play poker and they get pocket aces, they think that they're entitled to win the hand every single time.
It's like
it actually doesn't work like that. When you get drawn pocket aces, you have, I think it's a 92% chance of winning the hand pre-flop, okay? Yeah. But a 92% chance of winning the hand isn't a 100% chance of winning the hand.
Nope.
So 8% of the time, you're going to lose that hand, right?
Oh, and
so that's why they say
post-flop, that number could cut in half.
That's right. That's why you want to get as much money in pre-flop as possible to knock everybody else out, because your chances go down the more people are in the hand and the more cards are on the table. So same thing applies to the weather. Now, you say that there's a 65% chance of rain. That doesn't mean that there's 100% chance it's going to rain. Now, the weather service from Birmingham came out and said there is absolutely not going to be any effect felt in Birmingham, in Alabama. That is completely anti-scientific. That is anti-science.
Who wants to bet that guy's going to get an official write-up in his jacket at least? Because he broke the meteorological rules, man. You can't do that. You can't
absolutely
say an absolute. These people haven't told us an absolute since the dawn of time.
See, but now you're starting to get an understanding of what's really happening here. So the official body that the Trump White House relies on for information was saying the same thing as Donald Trump. But look at this. The former National Hurricane Center director, Bill Reed. Now, why are we talking to the former National Hurricane Center director? Because when they're saying that meteorologists are saying Trump is wrong, they're not giving you any specifics, are they? They're not telling you what official capacity these meteorologists are operating in. Here's one. The former National Hurricane Center director, Bill Reed, blasted NOAA leadership on Friday night on his Facebook page. Mind you, very official stuff.
Official stuff.
Very official. Remember, this is from The Guardian. This is not rightwingconspiracytheory.com, okay? Quote, so disappointing, and saying he would comment because NOAA employees were ordered to be quiet. No evidence provided. He said, either NOAA leadership truly agrees with what they posted, or they were ordered to do it. If it's the former, the statement shows a lack of understanding of how to use probabilistic forecasts in conjunction with other forecast information. Embarrassing. If it's the latter, the statement shows a lack of courage on their part by not supporting the people in the field who are actually doing the work. Heartbreaking, ladies and gentlemen. Let me assure you, this is a different guy, Dan Sobian, president of the union representing weather service employees.
They have a union?
They have a union.
Fucking union?
Who knew?
The weather girl. The weather girl that's hired because she looks good has a fucking union because she's doing the work.
So the president of that union, James, he said, let me assure you, the hardworking employees of the NWS had nothing to do with the utterly disgusting and disingenuous tweet sent out by NOAA management tonight. In a phone interview with The Guardian, he explained his deep concern over NOAA's statement, which he said was unprecedented in his decades with the NWS. Sobian stressed that he was speaking in his capacity as the president of the union, which is not for the NWS, James, which is overseen by NOAA. So there you go. The plot thickens, James. The storm clouds loom. So here you have all of these people, these auxiliary people, former directors, union bosses and stuff. When you see the media and when you see reports of meteorologists are upset at what Donald Trump did, those are the people we're talking about. When it's NOAA, the National Atmospheric.
National
what is it again?
Oceanographic
National
and
Oceanic
Atmospheric.
and Atmospheric Administration.
Right.
The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration actually backed up what Trump said, and it's all of these other people on the sidelines who are saying that that's wrong. So I just found that interesting because that's being reported in The Guardian, by the way.
I'm sorry, it's The Guardian. I can't get past the fact that they have a union. I mean, wasn't it Australia? It was Australia or Britain, one of those, colonialist countries that literally presented the naked weather on the channel because they were trying to spice up. Was it Canada? There you go.
Yeah.
I told you it was the
Canada.
colonialists. Yeah, naked weather because they can't fucking predict the weather right ever. So let's give them tits and ass to distract from the fact that we get every fucking thing wrong. I mean, it's fucking insanity. They have a fucking union. Oh my God.
I think it's a great idea. Maybe next time Donald Trump gives one of those presentations in the Oval Office, he should do it Bill Clinton style, just naked from the waist down. And as you can see here, all signs are pointing north right now. Thanks for joining us. James, Amy Klobuchar. Do you want a bit more fun? Amy Klobuchar blasts Trump's Taliban explanation. This isn't a game show, she said in regards to the Taliban. Senator Amy Klobuchar, who is struggling for oxygen, this is me talking, who's struggling for oxygen in a presidential primary for the DNC, James. She can't get any traction. On Sunday, the article criticized President Donald Trump's foreign policy style and cast doubt on the explanation of why peace talks with the Taliban have been put hold on indefinitely. To me, this is no way to conduct foreign policy. Yes, we should be negotiating with the Afghan government, and we should be negotiating with the Taliban to try to end bloodshed in the country, which has been going on for decades. But I love the fact that she's really upset. She's very keen to say that this is not a game show. She thinks Donald Trump is running the country like a game show. I caught this video over the weekend from the Washington Post, of all places. CNN is turning the debates into a game show.
During every week of the Trump administration, there's plenty to report on. There are outrages, flip-flops, dysfunction, insults, racism. Yet, in the advance of CNN's debate in late July, CNN sort of took a break from all that. They decided to promote a game show?
Tonight, we're taking you behind the scenes of the upcoming Democratic presidential debate with CNN.
Fake news is attacking fake news. It's the Washington Post taking on CNN. So the world's
the best, isn't
it? It's the best. This is like celebrity cage match. This is like literally fucking watching Beavis and Butthead on cartoons. We have the world's worst newspaper attacking the world's worst television station for fake news game shows. This is fucking priceless. Oh my God. Get Pat Sajak on the phone. Get fucking Chuck Woolery right fucking now. Oh my God.
Oh, let's get ready to rumble!
Is hosting in Detroit. Now, we want you, the voters, to see how we're choosing which 10 candidates will appear on stage together.
They could have done that themselves, behind closed doors. But they wanted transparency.
So I have all 10 of these names here. I'm going to give them a good shuffle, and because we are being very open about this process...
This is like the fucking lottery! What the hell is going on here? This is like the NFL draft. We've got the balls. We're about to put them into the roller. We're going to see who gets the first pick.
Have you ever seen how they select the FIFA World Cup? They have like all the little names in separate little pots. And then, you get pooled in certain things and there's different pots and that's how they pull them out of different pots and stuff. This is fucking insane.
Multiple camera views.
So it took an entire hour to match candidates?
It took an entire hour, James.
Fucking hour!
With a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And then they analyzed it.
John Delaney says it's a bad idea. John Hickenlooper says it's a bad idea.
Holy
Washington Post. We have to give a round of applause to Washington Post for this. This is sensational stuff. Yeah, they're pointing out how ridiculous it all is. Look,
Wants a lot of eyeballs on this debate, and they're willing to really, really embarrass themselves to get them.
Coming up, we're going to reveal how the candidates will be positioned on stage.
He's like a barrier drawer in a horse race.
This is insane. Oh my God. They don't do this much prep work for the NFL draft, right? I mean, they literally, these guys are fucking insane.
You know, the barrier draw is all important during a Democratic debate, James. You know, see, I like to think that Beto O'Rourke can get the strongest run third out from the wide. He likes to start slow, and he likes to kick around the group when they get to the final furlong of the race, James. Now, Amy Klobuchar is going to need a rails run. She's going to need a rails run. She's going to need the bigger horses to stay out of her way. So if she gets pushed up against that rail, you might see her struggle for space so she can use her lightning speed, James.
Don't forget the turf conditions, because if it's a soft track, Kamala's going to have a lot better chance because of that extra cushion for her type of horse dealing there. So we got to make sure that we are aware of whether it's a fast track or a slow track.
No. It's mud. It's a mud track, James. It's just slop. It's just slop out there.
We gotta do that. You have to remake, right? I don't know if you can do it right now, but you have to remake that. And off.
Coming up around the outside, Amy Klobuchar followed by Beto O'Rourke. They're running deep. Amy Klobuchar pulled and Kirsten Gillibrand, ladies and gentlemen, coming through the middle of the pack. Kirsten Gillibrand. Joe Biden's jockey is gone. His horse is running in the opposite direction with bloodshot eyes. Nobody knows where Joe Biden's going, but it's not to the finish line. Kamala Harris sniffing up the rear of the horse in front of her, Andrew Yang.
Holy shit! Somebody, dude, this has to be clipped out. This is the funniest shit we've ever done. This is a highlight reel right here.
Maybe the problem is, James, maybe more important than where they're standing on the debate stage, maybe more important than where they're drawn, is how they fucking speak. Maybe that's the problem here. Let's have a look at the swears, James.
Curse your way to a voter's heart. Swearing is certainly something we've heard from presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke, even though at one point he actually swore off swearing. That didn't exactly happen, though.
Is there anything in your mind that the president can do now to make this any better?
What do you think? You know that he's been saying. I don't know. Like, members of the press, what the
I'm just waiting for Elizabeth Warren. Honey, can you get me a fucking beer? Can you get me a fucking beer, honey? Because that'll be the ultimate then.
Hey, this is the best. I think this is the best, too. I love it. Because what's the point that we've been pushing on all the time? PC culture must die. PC culture must die. PC culture must die. Fuck you if you don't think PC culture must die. And that's the whole point, right? A lot of the shows, like, for example, My Pirate Radio, the whole point of the show is that we're going to get vulgar, we're going to be cussing, we're going to be swearing. The whole point of the show is that Americans swear. These guys are trying to artificially inseminate swearing into the DNC as we're more American, and it's actually going to go against their agenda and help Americans realize, hey, PC culture must die. So good on them. Way to be counterproductive at all times.
Yeah, the other thing too, if you've spent your career advocating for PC boundaries, right, you can't just then come out and be un-PC. It doesn't work that way, because the very audience that you've cultivated up until this point will turn against you. You know, I played a clip of Beto O'Rourke, a Democrat voter going up to Beto O'Rourke and saying, we've already got one vulgar president. We don't need another one. Like, so can you please stop swearing? This was months ago. So if you're all about political correctness, then you can't suddenly come out and be non-PC. It's like, you know, it's you're shooting yourself in the mouth with your own gun, because if the only weapon you've got is to attack other people for being un-PC and for being vulgar, then what happens when you come out and mimic those behaviors, James? Like, who do you think you're convincing here? You're not convincing the people that you were attacking for the last 20 years. Like, they're already on, they don't believe you, and you're making a misery for the people who have supported you for the last 20 years. Because now you're going back on everything that you've said previously. But wait, I want you to see this. Wait until you see who gets blamed for the Democrats swearing. I'll give you one guess.
averaging about 300 mass shootings a year. No other country comes close. So yes, this is up.
Just this week, Politico ran this story. Can the F-bomb save Beto? Weighing the pros and cons of his use of profanity.
Weighing the pros and cons of his use of profanity? But haven't we been told for the last 4 years, James, that vulgar speech is unpresidential and needs to be pushed back on? Now, all of a sudden, it's up for debate. Now, all of a sudden, it's being rationalized. Now, all of a sudden, hey, maybe it's not that bad because our guys are doing it. Right? You see the flaw here? Let's carry on.
But O'Rourke is hardly the only candidate to let loose in that matter. In fact, we're hearing foul language more and more from a number of 2020 contenders.
Republicans need to, quite frankly, get their together.
And they've been laughing their off about it for the last couple of years.
I wonder why the hell he's doing that.
I got when I wrote the bill.
This is his politics.
So, shall we discuss CNN political commentator and former Clinton White House press secretary Joe Lockhart?
Remember, folks, for the last 4 years, you've been told that vulgar, un-PC language needs to be, that is the big crime here. It needs to be done away with. We cannot accept a politician who speaks in non-PC vulgar language. That must not be allowed. That's been the story for the last 4 years. Now listen to the story.
And CNN political analyst Sarah Isgur are here with us. She was an advisor to Ted Cruz and Mitt Romney. Joe, does swearing typically make a presidential candidate seem more authentic, more passionate maybe, or does it seem contrived?
What?
I think if it comes off as authentic, it helps you break out of the pack. And I think for
Wow. So now all of a sudden swearing helps you break out of the pack. Remember, for the last 4 years, you haven't been allowed to do it. It's been bad. But wait, one more little moment here, James. The reason why are all of the candidates now swearing? Who's to blame for all this?
Beto, in particular, who was having trouble getting traction and is still in the lower tier of the candidates. This was something that hit close to home, and it was authentic when it came out. I'm not sure he'll continue doing this.
Why fucking
but we've
not?
had a general coarsening of our politics. Remember, the president has said a number of things on camera that are on par with what Beto said.
So the whole story here is we need to replace Donald Trump because he says vulgar things, James, but we're allowed to say vulgar things because President Donald Trump says vulgar things.
That's right.
Right? What Trump does is wrong, but when we do what Trump does to get rid of Trump because what he does is wrong, we're doing the right thing.
Yep.
Has your mind been sufficiently twisted into a pretzel, ladies and gentlemen? Is your brain turning to custard before your very eyes? Is there steam and molten lava flying out of your ears as we speak? There should be. Because that's how crazy shit's getting right now, James. James, do you have any fucking opinions on this? You fucking ass.
Absolutely. Fucking PC must fucking die. No, you do not have to swear to be American, and we still accept you. The problem is a bunch of fucking Americans don't accept us. That's been the problem. And I got to remind Boogie of something. I literally have to remind you of way back in our beginning. You awarded me like a million internets for being able to tie this shit to the Puritans. And I would remind you.
God, please do. I want to hear this. All right.
That the Puritans left England and came here. And if you look into what's the difference, right? We're the same people, essentially. We're free in Australia, free in Britain, free here. Basically came from the same group of people, both in many different ways, you know, from literally the DNA, right? Even the same mixed bag cultures, okay? What's the difference? The Puritans came here, and if you look at our television laws through the FCC, it's all based in this puritanical view, even though behind the scenes, when the camera's off, every single motherfucking politician is talking exactly like this. Every one of them, you can see it, you can hear it, the fucking reporters are doing it too. They know it, and they've been hiding it. That's why we know that it exists. This is what happens behind closed doors. And they've allowed this thing, this puritanical viewpoint, to become PC culture. And that's what we're talking about here, is that it's okay that you don't cuss. And if you don't like cussing, you have the freedom to walk the fuck away from me. You have the freedom to hit the fucking X right now and self-deport. You don't have to listen to me. I'm not forcing you to be here. You do not have to be around me ever. But you can either learn that nailing down PC culture is the problem with all of this shit that we're fighting. It's literally the root hub of all of this shit.
The problem with PC, and someone in the chat was quite right to point out, just swearing isn't necessarily, anti-PC. I get that. We get that. But it's about chipping away here, right? See, what political correctness does, in essence, is constrain what is allowable thought. It creates a channel, and there's certain thoughts and ideas in this channel which are allowed, and thoughts and ideas outside of that channel which become taboo. Mm-hmm. Because PC isn't about, restricting speech. It's about restricting thought. Because if you can't articulate a thought in speech, then that thought doesn't necessarily exist at that point, right?
That's right.
Language and thought are like ballroom dancers, and one leads the other around the room. So if you can constrict what people are allowed to say, you will inevitably change the way people think. That's really what's at play here. So when we're talking about, taking down PC, we're really talking about breaking apart this channel and having the box a lot wider. The hitting zone needs to be a lot wider, because if we can't address certain problems using certain speech, then we're not going to be able to address certain problems. Eventually, everything just funnels into one box. Left, right, it doesn't matter, right? You might be very conservative, but if political correctness rules the day and conservative ideas are anti-political correctness, then you're not going to get any conservative ideas into power. Because they're not allowed, right? They're racist, or they're bigoted, or they're sexist, or they're homophobic, or they're wrong. So that's what we're talking about here, is breaking apart that channel. James, I just want to go quickly back to back here, talk about the candidacies in the debates. I found this very interesting from Salon. Blue Dog Democrats must go. So yeah. Now,
thank you. We'll take all you blue dogs. Don't worry about it. We love you right here. Trump team, MAGA 2020, baby.
Your vote's got to go somewhere. Those votes have got to go somewhere. What's interesting to me here is we've done the numbers on this show. We've done the numbers on previous episodes of this show, and I think it was around, let's say, I'm going to say somewhere in the 70s in the midterm elections, okay? Of the 70 seats that the DNC identified as toss-up seats, right, 50-50 chances, 4 candidates ran on Green New Deal. The rest didn't. The rest ran on moderate platforms. 4 candidates only in those toss-up seats ran on Green New Deal. Guess how many of those 4 candidates won?
0.
Duck egg. Bagel, 0. Bubkiss, duck egg. Okay? Nothing. The amount of, progressive, hardcore progressives that exist in the Democrat Party is overblown by the corporate media complex. You're really talking about, when you're talking about Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, AOC, these are people from very, very deep blue districts who literally have no responsibility for the things that they say, because they're only going to be outdone by somebody who's either more Democrat than them or a little bit less than Democrat than them. They're never going to lose to a Republican. So they can really just spew off whatever they want and have no repercussions for it. The reality for the Democrat Party and Nancy Pelosi is, despite what you may think about Nancy Pelosi, she is, by Democrat Party standards, a modern-day moderate, okay? And that's scary enough. But she knows that if the party goes too far left officially, then they will lose all of those moderate purple swinging districts that they won in the 2018 midterms. But places like Salon, the blue dog Democrats, the moderate, center of the road swinging voters, you need to understand this. If you're a Democrat listening to this, the progressives on your own side view you as the problem. You're the cancer that needs to be removed. They hate you more than they hate the Republicans. They view you as enablers to the Republican agenda because you're not prepared to go full commie. So you're the problem. You need to be purified from the Democrat Party. You need to be cleansed from the Democrat Party rank and file. This is literally the way they view you. And it's the same for every left-wing party around the Western world. It's the same here in Australia. They view the nationalist Christian left-wing voter, James, as the enemy more so than the right-wing, because they're the ones stopping progress, because they won't back a full socialist agenda. Look at this. Progressive activists often see a frustrating pattern. Many Democrats in office are good at liberal platitudes but don't really fight for what we need. Even when constituents organise to lobby or protest, they have little leverage compared to big campaign donors, party leaders and corporate media spin. Activist efforts routinely fall short because while propelled by facts and passion, they lack actual power. Right now, in dozens of Democratic congressional districts, the most effective way for progressives to lobby their inadequate representatives would be to primary them. Activists may flatter themselves into believing that they have the most influence by seeking warm personal relationships with a Democratic lawmaker, but a credible primary campaign is likely to change an elected official's behaviour far more quickly and extensively. In short, all too often, progressive activists are routinely just too frigging nice without galvanizing major grassroots power. So the activists haven't been angry enough. This is what Salon is arguing. The activists are too nice and they haven't worked hard enough to remove the moderates, which literally won them the 2018 midterm races, James.
Yes.
They need to be removed.
Yeah,
and I say, please go ahead. Go do it. Go harder.
I
Get rid of
agree.
them.
I agree. You're not angry enough. Please call all of the Democrats fucking Nazi enablers. Please let them all know they're white supremacist sympathizers. Please go ahead and take care of all those blue dog Democrats for us. Kick them right out of that Democrat Party. We'll accept them right over here on the MAGA side. Listen, there's one quick point I wanted to make, actually from a little bit earlier, is that I wanna highlight something. We're talking about PC culture. We're talking about the fact that we must kill it. It must be shot dead. No questions asked about that, for everybody's sake. For the whole world's sake, no matter what your other politics are, even if you're a batshit crazy leftist, even if you're a tree-hugging fruit, I don't care. PC culture must die to protect you too, okay? Having said that, I want to make a point to a lot of people that don't understand, like, why we even do some of the swearing and just the pure acceptance of it. I'm going to make this really key point. You, yourself, you that doesn't like the swearing, remember what Donald Trump said before he was elected, and you agreed with him. You all agreed with him. In fact, everybody that voted for Trump agreed with him, that you cannot defeat radical Islam unless you're willing to call it radical Islam. Literally words that had meaning. That's the difference here. With PC culture, with shunning me being able to say, that guy's a fucking asshole, literally would prevent me from being able to say that, which changes how we could even go after the facts. Even what the articles we were just talking about. When you can't speak freely, when you can't look at someone and tell them what you thought. In fact, not everybody's as eloquently spoken as Boogie Bumper or as, Chris Mack. And a lot of people have a very poor vocabulary. And the frustration seeps in, and the synapse doesn't fire very fast, and they end up just going, oh, fuck you! People have to be allowed to do that. They have to. Yep. If you don't allow that to happen, you're shutting down the ability to kill PC culture, and you're actually harming the system.
And that's actually one of my greatest gripes with the left-wing academic elitist worldview, James, because they see it's, I think Orwell spoke about it too. The left-wing academic actually hates the working class. They how they pretend to be in favor of the working class. They view them as pigs, as rednecks, as uneducated swill, right? And the left-wing hardcore activist academic sees it as their role in society to decide how everybody else should live their life because they're smarter than you. They're more educated than you. So I've never been one to say that just because somebody doesn't have a strong command of the English language and just because somebody can't speak articulately on certain topics, that they should be banished from political discussion. Quite the opposite, actually.
That's right.
Because that's what the left-wing academics think. They think that if you're a little coarse and a little rough around the edges, that you should be expelled from any future debate. And one of the things that Donald Trump does is he resonates with people because he speaks, there's a great saying in business, and it's so true. You've got to speak the language of the buyer, right?
That's right.
You've got to speak the language of the buyer. I remember interviews with Donald Trump in the 1990s talking about, I'm a rich guy, but I really don't like talking to the other rich people. I want to talk to the cab drivers. You know what I mean? I talk to the construction worker and the cab driver, not the rich guys, because I don't really have anything to say to them. So, what James is saying is 100% spot on. People for too long have been told just because they can't speak and sound like an overeducated twat at the same time means that they shouldn't be allowed to express themselves publicly over what they think is right and wrong and happening in their world. Like their vote's worth one just as much as the educated person's is. So they should have the same right to speak about why they're voting a certain way just as much as the educated person should. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Ginger, you bring up an excellent point. I want to read Ginger's comment here because it's very excellent, and then I'm going to tear it apart. She says, the F word doesn't bother me. But James, if I used your name as a cuss word, how would your children feel? That's not being PC. It really isn't. It's being sensitive to your audience. That's an excellent point. And guess what? Doesn't fucking matter. It's an articulative device used to express myself and express other people's opinions that watch this show. I understand what you're saying, and being sensitive to you and other people. Like, for example, I just had this discussion where in a business setting, for me to tell someone they're a fucking idiot would probably be inappropriate, and if I was their boss, might end up in a lawsuit. And that's exactly the fucking problem. That is exactly the problem. That is how they have gone in and taken my ability to express myself through the First Amendment in any way I so choose. And let me point this out to you real quick. The president himself said this one time, and I'll make this argument to you. Is there anything more descriptive that everybody in the entire country, in the whole world, understands more descriptive than? That's fucking bullshit. I think everybody can understand if I say the governor wants to take $10,000 a year more in taxes from me. If I say, well, that's bullshit, everybody knows what I mean. And I don't have to go into a long descriptive process. I can just use two little words, bull and shit, and everybody understands. That is why language should never be interfered with, because the hardest thing in the world to do is exchange ideas. It's the hardest thing in the world to do. We have no mechanism to directly translate ideas from our brain to your brain and for you to understand what I conceive. It's impossible.
Elon Musk is working on that, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. But the most descriptive means we have to communicate ideas is language. It's why the English language is so bastardized. Yes, I said it. We have the ability in the English language to steal words from any culture, from any language, in order to become better descriptors for you to understand the concept I'm trying to get across to you. So that is why language must be defended at all times, in all manner, nonstop, no matter whether you're offended by it or not.
Well said. Couldn't have said it better myself. That's a quality. Never mind clipping the stupid little horse race clip. Clip that. Clip that. Get that out there. Thank you. I feel like we're ending the show. All right. Thanks, everyone. Can't come back from that. Speaking of using names as an insult, I want you to stick around for the hammering tonight. We've got one more piece before we get to the hammering, but that is literally the clip I have set up for the hammering tonight, is Anderson Cooper and using names as an insult, which it is going to blow your mind, this hammering tonight. So do stick around. But before we do, one more piece here for you, James. Well, actually, quickly, if you want to do Hong Kong, we'll just quickly do Hong Kong. History will remember how Trump responded to Hong Kong, James. This is interesting, from the Washington Post. While President Trump plotted to annex Greenland, great opening, China's Xi Jinping A serious man spent August weighing a decision that could shape the future of his country and its relations with the world for years to come. It has nothing to do with the purchases of US soybeans or other concessions to give Trump a face-saving way out of his self-defeating trade war with Beijing. Wait, so China is now trying to save Donald Trump's face by giving him deals on soybeans? Right. That is one of the hottest takes this side of Beijing, my friends, let me tell you. For now, Xi appears inclined to sit back. I mean, the very same Xi Jinping who went to Davos and the World Economic Forums and said, fuck Trump, we're taking over the world. That's the guy who's doing Trump a favor here. Really? Right. Gotcha. Thanks for that. For now, Xi appears inclined to sit back and watch Trump's mounting panic over the potential election year consequences of his folly. I think he's doing okay. Instead, Xi is considering whether to act on his regime's repeated threats to crush Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement by force. That'll be good in the PR. That'll be a great PR victory for the Chinese, won't it? He has few other options, listen to this, to stop the mass demonstrations that have shaken the city this summer. They're actually rationalizing for the Chinese state to crush a pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong, James, which after 12 weeks are undiminished in strength. That's because he has no intention of meeting the protesters' demands for the resignation of Hong Kong's pro-Beijing executive and the staging of free elections. He has no intentions, James. It's all about face. Hong Kong leader formally withdraws extradition bill in major backdown. Yeah, but he's winning, though. Xi Jinping is winning. He's winning this battle in Hong Kong, right? So there you have it. Chief Executive Carrie Lam has made a key concession to protesters, formally withdrawing a controversial extradition bill after 13 weeks of protests that have rocked the city and resulted in 1,183 arrests, James. Any comment on that before we go to our next little video here, or do you just want to let that stand?
Yeah, just let it stand.
Okay, cool. Now, we were talking about Democratic primaries, James. Now, a few contenders have gotten into the works for the Republican primary. I did a video about Joe Walsh. You can go to my YouTube channel and look that up. It's very funny because Joe Walsh really literally has no idea what the fuck he's even doing running. He can't tell you. He tells you he's running for one reason, which is to stop Donald Trump because the party hates him, but then says that the reason Donald Trump got elected is because everybody was sick of the party. So he doesn't know what planet he's on, Joe Walsh. But a couple of other people have thrown their hat in the ring recently. You've got Mark Sanford, the former congressman from South Carolina, James. And the Republican Party have withdrawn primaries from certain states. Were you aware of this? They're not going to run primaries. And I tend to think that that's like because they want to save money. There's no point in having a primary when the guy is going to win like 90% to 10%, and there's no possible way for these other candidates to even get on the ballot, basically. So I tend to think that's the reason. Joy Behar has a hot take that's a little bit different. She thinks it's for a different reason. You know what it is, James? Because they scared. They scared.
Tonight, we're going to talk about fear.
Scared to death.
Namely, the increasingly obvious fear that Donald Trump and his team are feeling about 2020. Politico reported today that 4 states are set to cancel their 2020 Republican presidential primaries and caucuses. South Carolina, Nevada, Arizona, and Kansas are all expected to finalize the cancellations in meetings this weekend. The move would cut off some much-needed oxygen to Trump's long-shot primary challengers. Former Massachusetts Governor Bill Weld, former Illinois
Wait. They're scared to death, but in her own statement, she says his long-shot primary challengers. Which is it? You're a dumbass. You can't even write a monologue that is in alignment with your headline. Like, if you want to give a hot take, give the hot take. Back it up with some bullshit. That is fucking amazing.
Congressman Joe Walsh and possibly former South Carolina Governor and Congressman Mark Sanford. And let's be clear, none of these challengers are polling within a mile of Donald Trump, who currently enjoys near complete devotion among the Republican base. So why cut off the challengers?
Because they're scared.
Why strand his potential opponents if Team Trump is confident that he will be the 2020 Republican nominee? What are these state parties so afraid of? Or are they not the ones who are afraid?
Wait, what?
See, the beautiful part here is, the beautiful thing about this is, James, if you hold the primary and Donald Trump absolutely trounces the opposition, right? You spin that negative. You say, oh, he only did that because he had all the support of the party, right? What these guys are looking for are opportunities to chip away at Donald Trump's support. Like literally over the next 18 months. That's what their job is, to try and make a few less Republican voters turn out in the 2020 election. That's really all they're gunning for. They know that they can't unseat the guy. He's literally more popular with Republicans than Ronald Reagan was.
Yep.
Literally. I don't know what to tell you. So they don't have any chance here. But it's not about winning, right? It's about chipping away. And of course, if you don't, it would be like if you ran a Little League team and you challenged the New York Yankees to a game, and the New York Yankees said, no, I don't think so. I don't think that we're going to play you. Then you come out as the Little League team and say, oh, they're scared of us. That's the only reason. That's the only reason that they didn't want to play is because they don't want
to get beat by a bunch of 10-year-olds.
Exactly. That's exactly what's going on here. Ridiculous hot take there from Joy Behar. But not Joy Behar, pardon me, Joy Reid.
Joy Reid.
Joy, happy Joy. Two
of the most joyless women on the planet named Joy. Can you imagine that?
Oh, it's beautiful. Let's load it up, James. It's time for the hammering. Let's go.
Stop the hammering.
James, one of the things that's often spoken about in regards to Donald Trump is he's the king of the insults. Like when he insults somebody, the insult sticks. You know, when he gives somebody a nickname, the nickname sticks. And you can go through all of the examples: Low Energy Jeb, Little Marco, Lion Ted, Crooked Hillary. They're all out there. Sleepy Eyes son of a bitch Chuck Todd, the stupidest man on television Don Lemon, and so on and so forth. So he has this ability to crystallize, you know, a foible in somebody else's personality and ego or appearance and make it their whole identity for the world to laugh and point at. But sometimes I think that people might be looking into what Donald Trump says a little too much. You know, some people like to think that everything is 4D chess. And I don't think necessarily that everything is 4D chess. But do you know who thinks that everything, you know, another person who thinks everything is 4D chess and the insult game when it's clearly not? Anderson Cooper. Anderson Cooper. Anderson Cooper believes everything Donald Trump does is 4D chess. This is the most amazing Anderson Cooper clip you will see this year. Check this out and try to figure it out. Try to figure it out.
Time now for the ridiculous. And tonight, it's another edition of President Trump's
Come on now.
Name game, kind of like Scrabble, but with no rules and double word score for cursing. The president's latest target is Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Fed.
Come on. He may say a swear every now and then, but he's no Beto fucking O'Rourke. Am I right? Come on now. Let's be fair.
Federal Reserve. Mr. Trump took a quick break today from binge watching Judge Jeanine to complain about interest rates and once again bash Mr. Powell. So
he's so salty, isn't he? He's so salty. Took a break from binge watching Judge Jeanine. you know the best word for that? You know the best word to describe Anderson Cooper in moments like this? He's being bitchy. Being a bitch.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, that's a bitchy thing to say.
That's
like,
right.
Oh my God, honey, have you mowed the lawns yet? No, actually, I haven't, dear. What, are you too busy binge watching Judge Jeanine?
I just want to know, how do you binge watch a show that's only on once a week?
For an hour.
For an hour.
Exactly. He watches the whole series back to back, James.
The whole series he started in January.
Yep.
You may recall the president himself appointed, but in levying his insult on Twitter today, the compost pile from which his most fertile phrases bloom.
The compost pile from which his most fertile phrases bloom.
The president failed to peg Powell with one of his go-to nicknames.
Okay.
Not lazy, not crazy, not lying, not crying even. No, when it comes to Jerome Powell, this was the best the president could do. Quote, "Where did I find this guy? Jerome. Oh, well, you can't win them all."
Is Anderson Cooper now criticizing the president for not coming up with an insult?
Wait, he's even better than that. He's taking him to task for insulting a guy that he didn't insult.
Yeah. No. He's not doing that at all, James. What you'll find Anderson Cooper's take on this is he's insulting the guy by saying his name. That's what Anderson Cooper believes. I swear to God. Are you ready? Are you ready for this?
I can't
if you're
wait.
standing, if you're standing, sit down. If you're sitting, lie down. And if you're driving, please pull over. Ladies and gentlemen, Anderson Cooper playing 4D chess with Donald Trump, saying that his insult is by using a guy's actual name.
Now, I assume that's intended to be a biting insult, but Twitter doesn't actually have a voice, so just typing the name Jerome doesn't work.
You have to hear it in its entirety because he goes through how Jerome is an insult. Look.
The name Jerome doesn't work. I mean, that is his name. Where did I find this guy, Jerome? Oh, well, you can't win them all. That has no bully bravado, no snide Slytherin snarkiness. For this tweet to work, the president is relying on you, the American people, to get in touch with your inner bully. You can do it. Jerome. Maybe that's more like it. That's more presidential, I think. Jerome. It's like Jerome was comped a free cocktail from Taj Mahal.
Oh my God, dude! This clip epitomizes Donald Trump owns these motherfuckers. He's so in their head that now he can say anything and they will fucking just lose their shit. He is literally doing nothing. And Anderson Cooper's like, I'll find it. I know he's insulting him somewhere. I'll find the insult. Let me try it. Jerome? No, let me try it this way. Jerome. What the fuck?
Jerome. You need to get in touch with your inner bully, ladies and gentlemen out there at home, in order for this tweet to work. Let's try a couple of examples, shall we? This is real news, by the way. This is real news. Jerome.
Rent-free, baby.
Hey.
Rent-free.
Jerome.
The American people, to get in touch with your inner bully. You can do it. Jerome. Maybe that's too campy. Jerome. Maybe that's more like it. That's more presidential, I think. Jerome. It's like Jerome was comped a shrimp cocktail at the Trump Taj Mahal in 1990 and never said thank you for such a big, fat, beautiful, elegant shellfish, and Mr. Trump has never forgotten. The reason...
If Anderson Cooper can... I can't believe Anderson Cooper has the balls to criticize anybody for being snarky and bitchy. Jerome. That's it. That's the one. That's it. That's right there. That's the bully.
So one can assume that President Trump uses Jerome as an insult, aside from the fact that insults are his stock in trade, is because Mr. Powell is often called by his nickname Jay, and our very stable genius knows that.
I have nominated Jay to be our next federal chairman. He's strong, he's committed, he's smart. Jay.
Oh my God.
Jay. Now I would like to invite Jay to say a few words.
So yeah, that was when he was announcing him. So it's Jay on the good days, Jerome on the bad.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's Yaverick.
Stop the hammering.
Oh,
I have not had that much fun doing a show in a long fucking time. That was Jerome. You know, here, let me do better than Anderson Cooper at putting one at the Trumpster, giving him back a little bit. What do you want to bet that the whole reason the president kept calling him Jay Powell was because the teleprompter just had a J with a period after it. So he forgot the guy's fucking name, so he just kept calling him Jay. I forgot this fucking guy's name. I don't know what the fuck it is. So we'll just go with Jay. Jay is a great guy. He's super smart. We become best friends. Jay, why don't you say a few things? Because I don't know fucking anything about you.
Jerome. Real news.
Real news, folks. If you want to follow him, you can follow him at Boogie Bumper. If you want to follow me, you can follow me at Real Person, PLTCS. If you want to follow us, you can follow us at TAV Show, and you can find all our prior episodes on TAVshow.com. Oh my God. Good night, everybody.
Do you remember when big tech called themselves the free speech platform and used slogans like "Don't be evil"? Fast forward a decade, and suddenly those platforms we loved for years have changed, and the promises they made at the start no longer apply. So what happened? How did we get here? Over the last decade, these companies have quietly moved their corporate headquarters outside the US to EU tax havens. The big change? Well, big tech is now governed under UN law. In simple terms, US free speech laws no longer apply to these platforms. What started as free speech for all is now regulated speech to some. We believe you, the people, not big tech, are the best judge of what you want to watch, read, and hear. We are content creators. We understand that a creator's ability to make a living should not be infringed upon. We created Zap Media with you in mind, a free market, next-gen media platform that believes in protecting your speech rights and, equally as important, your privacy, including IP theft and data mining. By removing the threat of censorship and freeing the market, content creators have a home base to build their platforms and grow their brands. The Zap Media community are brand ambassadors, coalescing behind publishers, subscribers, and advertisers alike. This is the beginning of the next big wave in digital media. With an estimated 225 million video-on-demand users expected by 2022, Zap is poised with your help to revolutionize the marketplace as we know it. We look forward to partnering with you.